biggest story of the day, in fact, the entire country's eyes on it, on what's to get cheaper. We could say almost everything. India's GST Council has rolled out historic overhaul that will touch every home and business, from cheaper essentials to relief on housing and even support for EVs. This new GST reform, which is called GST 2.0, next-gen GST, that's what the centre calls it, promises to be both people-friendly and growth-oriented. The new system kicks in on September 22nd, the first day of Navratri, is designed to shape India's taxation for the next decade. 4 slabs have now collapsed into just 2, that's 5% and 18%. Sin goods and luxury goods, basically, will have a 40% slab. So this clarity means fewer disputes, less paperwork, and simpler compliance. Especially for small businesses, it's a huge relief. In fact, this is a bold simplification that makes the economy easier to navigate now. If I could tell you, daily essentials from milk, bread, butter, toiletries, footwear, all that falls under 2,500 rupees now come under 5% GST. Agricultural equipment, medical devices all get relief. Even life and health insurance premiums are fully exempt. Families will feel this immediately with lower spending in the festive season and, of course, more money at hand now. GST on ACs, large TVs, dishwashers, cement, and even small cars and motorcycles up to 350cc has now been slashed from 28% to 18%. Also, home buyers, they will have to jump with joy because it seems like GST has been cut there as well. Home becomes more affordable, travel more affordable, domestic demand gets a push. These cuts are expected to boost consumption and spur manufacturing. That's the aim. Urban households also get a cheer. Affordable housing, like I said, projects and rental schemes now face lower GST. So if you're looking to buy a property, this could be the time, post-September 22nd. Electric vehicles and batteries. In fact, the entire automobile industry has got a huge relief with tax cut from earlier 28%. It's now come to 18% on many small and mid-level vehicles. Electric vehicles, batteries, chargers, they all stay on concessional rates. EV is, in fact, largely at 5%. So that's huge. It's, in a way, India's push for green energy, reinforcing India's green push here. Together, these measures, of course, looking for India to push towards sustainability and a smarter choice to make with going electric. Well, the council has also drawn a hard line on consumption of harmful tobacco, pan masala, carbonated drinks, aerated drinks like Pepsi, Coca-Cola. All of that now will come under 40% slab, 40% GST. The steep levy generates revenue, of course, on one hand for the states, funds healthcare, and in a way discourages addiction. Importantly, a new GST appellate tribunal, GSTAT, will now resolve disputes faster and more fairly. In fact, we hear states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, multiple states, in fact, all across, states will surely now see higher revenue because things will change, demand will increase, revenue will increase for the states. Some states, though, also have claimed that this is going to be a dent to the state exchequer, and they hope for the central government to compensate. So that's a whole topic of conversation separately. But, well, for the common man, by and large, this is a huge thumbs up. How does India stack up globally? Many nations like New Zealand run GST just one standard rate that they have. Like, for example, New Zealand has 15% GST across the board, across products. India's earlier structure with multiple rates and exclusions made India's GST the most complex in the world. But now with the central government coming to collapsing all those multiple slabs into just 2 main slabs, finally, India fits in with many other countries. Though India still follows a unitary system, unlike abroad. Many of them abroad have one system only across the board, but India has dual state and center GST. So GST 2.0 is not just a tax reform, it's a full reset as per experts. Let me bring in our thought leaders in this space. Joining me to discuss a little more, Dilip Chenoy, former Secretary of FICCI, former Secretary General FICCI. We also have Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, consulting editor, The Business Standard, and Adik Kothari, foreign affairs expert, joining us live from London. Trump tariffs pushing India into simplifying GST. Though I've asked this question to others before, but they said this was anyway in the making. It was to come. GST reforms was on the mind of the centre for a while, and finally it's come because there was a lot of heat that the centre also had to face over the years. Many of them slamming this as the most complex GST format in the world. I gave an example of New Zealand, barely, well, I wouldn't say barely, well, it's 15% across the board, hardly any concession on any product. So New Zealand had one simplified GST slab and everything fits under that. But India had many slabs and many exclusions. So it made it so difficult for people to, first of all, understand the system. But now they've simplified it. If Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, would you want to jump in on that and give us your sense on the relief and the impetus it would give to the Indian economy? You're on mute.
Relief is the right word. That is a huge change that has been done. In fact, what was expected from the pieces that got written in the run-up to the GST meeting to what finally came up was much more dramatic.
Yeah.
So obviously, both the center and the state finance ministers kept their cards close to their chest, and that's something that has been pleasant. I want to look at it now. We have now 24 hours almost into the announcements. The thing that now would be very significant is how does industry react to the GST? There's been so much of discussion on this thing. There's naturally the media is talking about it. There's in the social media, there's a lot of discussions. In houses, there are a lot of discussions. It is now very significant that companies actually make measurable changes in their price lines. And this is going to be a very significant thing to watch out for. Because if that doesn't come through, and I'm sure it will come through, but if that doesn't come through, then that can be an extremely big blowback for the entire exercise. Because we are talking about rise in consumption, we are talking about people taking now bold bets across the spectrum, from lower middle class to the upper middle class, everybody. Every sort of good has got a cut, even luxury goods like cars, the big cars, even their effective tax is actually lower. Given all that, if now it is now up to the companies, and I'm really saying the companies to show that there's been a measurable change in the price line. Because, you know, the inflation is also very low.
Yeah.
It's just 1.4. And if given that sort of inflation, benign inflation, a huge tax cut, and this is really huge, if the prices do not start to show up, and we see, I mean, excuses, obviously there'll be excuses. The fact that there are unsold stocks, those have to be cleaned out. There are other issues of input tax credit which have to be taken care of. And of course, some will be genuine. But the big thing would be that what is it that ultimately reaches the people? So this is going to be the big discussion going ahead into the festival season. Do people start really feeling that prices have come down?
Unless companies don't increase prices of products, then why won't it come down?
No, the big point is that when a cut is happened, supposing from 18%, so it's say 5% or 12% to 5%.
Yeah.
I can understand that it's not the exact one-to-one correspondence. You don't get the price cut by the same rate.
Yeah.
But that is where the challenge is. I can understand the fast-moving items. There, the ticket size is small. So there, the prices would be very little. But in terms of anything else, the prices should reflect the changes. And India is a very price-sensitive economy.
Yeah.
So prices must start showing across the range. I mean, as wide a range as we are talking about, we shouldn't have to come back after some time to talk about the fact that price changes were announced on so many. How many have been the ones where there's been a real measurable cut? And I'm talking about a cut in prices, not about holding prices constant. I mean, the companies have
Okay.
two ways of looking at it. They can say that we haven't raised prices, even though there was an occasion to raise it. We have simply translated it as a measure of the GST rationalization. We have kept the prices flat, and going ahead, it'll be there. That I don't think is going to satisfy people. There's
Okay.
going to be a serious issue there, and then a lot of give and take between the government, between the industry, between the consumer, and lots of other. The discussion could tend to get a bit messy. So I think it's now time for India Inc. to start looking at not only that, yes, the government has cut the rates, how much can I make it also seem real in terms of the change at the retail price. That is going to be a very big measure of the success of this entire exercise. And this is a very big exercise that has been done. Yes.
Let me also bring in Dilip on that. Dilip, do you believe that 40% slab on sin goods particularly and luxury goods really impact demand or only shifts it to the informal sector? He said that 40% tax on sin goods and luxury goods is also less than what it was previously. Would you break it down for that? What does that mean?
So there are two issues there in the 40% tax. There are some goods which are not taxed at 40%, right? Even if you take it, like for example, aerated drinks and non-alcoholic beverages, etc., which actually have been put in that category. And of course, the other category of goods like alcohol and tobacco, and alcohol is not in the GST, but tobacco and other products which are there. So I think here what you're going to see is even in that, right? Because some of them are so sensitive to prices, you might not see that much of a price increase. I think companies in the short term may actually, not increase it, by that much amount to offset the entire increase in GST. Yes, there will be some sectors which have been taken to 40%, which will, you'll see them saying that, we are not a sin good or we're not there. And very interestingly, the IPL tickets also about 40% GST. So that's a different kind of a thing. But on the point that Shubhaboy made, if I can come back to that, Nabila, for a point, that I believe that industry will pass on the benefits. Yes, he did mention about some of the MRP pricing, which is there, which is already on the packaging, etc., etc. There would be a short-term, challenge there because you can't really change everything by the 22nd, etc. There are things out in the market. But I believe that you will see significant price cuts, and especially in the auto industry, which has really been
Yeah, I see that the auto industry will have a huge boost. But what's this bike above 350cc? They will be under the 40% slab. I see a lot of them actually condemning this because all fancy bikes are in that price, and India is fancy. Now you have bikers across the country now, and they want to upgrade, and 40% could be steep.
Yeah, that's a very interesting classification. Possibly, I don't know what the thought process behind that is, because a lot of those bikes are even used by the defense services and the police forces, right? Because they are powerful and they actually meet their needs, etc. So we have to see, what that is. It is at least the people. There are some manufacturers who only make that category. So obviously they're going to be impacted in terms of that. But if you take the GST plus cess, which was there earlier, possibly it's a 1 percentage point or 2 percentage point lower than what it was earlier, at least for the high-end cars. For the two-wheelers, one will have to actually figure out what exactly is the implication.
So excuse me on that. Basically, what I read is for cheap, low entry and medium level vehicles, for bikes and cars, it all falls flat under GST, 18% GST. Only your above 350cc, above 1200cc engine for cars, or 1400, 1500cc engine for cars, those are the ones that will fall under 40%. But there also there was another cess anyway that we would give for luxury cars earlier, which was 17 to 18% above the 28%, and that would culminate to 50% on the whole. But now this is, with the new introduction, it's 40% flat. So even in that sense, it's coming down only.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's coming down there, but on the engine size, there's also a small car definition, not only engine but also size, length.
Okay. Okay. Shubhamoy, would you want to clarify on that? I will come to Mr. Kothari in just a moment on the global implications here. But Shubhamoy, your take on automobile industry really getting a huge boost. What does this mean? Do you think this will increase demand? Are people really going to be buying more cars and vehicles? Festive season is here, I understand. But how does this really impact or push demand in that sense?
Well, the point is that I looked at all the prices of all cars in the high end, and everybody's tax liability has come down. And that's the point. There's just no manufacturer for no product whose aggregate taxes have increased. So there is definitely a case for reduction in prices. Now, point is, for the high-end cars, the price is important, but what people also do buy is that this is the category where the buyer can afford to take in those prices. The big point is that, after all, if this GST thing wasn't done, if there wasn't a balance created, there are 5 items for which indirect taxes in India actually make up the entire kitty: alcohol, petroleum, electricity, tobacco, and automobiles. These are the 5 items from which most of the taxes come. Of these, 3 are out of the GST. 2, automobiles and tobacco, are in the GST. Tobacco is a different category. In automobiles too, electric vehicles have been allowed to stay at 5%. That's a huge, so the difference has actually increased. And
but who is
government
buying
clearly
EVs, sir? Are we really headed towards the EV?
So that's the point. There's a huge change that has been clearly been pushed when other countries, Europe, and if people are wanting to, sort of have a tab that I'm progressive and I'm whatever, then I suppose it's good for them to shift to EV. Europe has made it the prices of petroleum cars, petrol-based cars, diesel-based cars. I mean, they've clearly said by 2035 they want to phase those out entirely.
Yeah.
Given that sort of a system, we are talking about EVs coming in. These EVs are globally comparable. Then obviously people can go in for EV. So I don't really see where the challenge is for a buyer of a car who has the cash in their pocket. And obviously these are people we're talking about who have the cash in their pocket. So they can jolly well pay a higher tax, and essentially there's no higher tax. The cess has been enveloped within the overall tax. So actually there's no way. And I saw the CEO of Mercedes India making a statement. He put it up on the social media, Twitter, that we shall be reworking the price and coming up with the new price level as early as tonight. And I suspect that those numbers would have already come. So
God knows, Mercedes just never changes its brackets. They're so confident that Indians are still going to buy. It's the most sought after luxury vehicle in the country.
But that's the point, that they are clearly, they wouldn't have made that statement unless Mercedes says that I want to changing the price. That I want to make a positive
now
statement.
They have tough competition with the Korean-made cars, and they're as good with the finest of features.
So those guys can afford to do it, and it's 350cc. Incidentally, Dilip made that point about the police and the defense vehicles. By the way, that's the classificational structure there is different, because it's on the retail price, and so their prices are actually in any case subsidized by the state. So they can afford to. In terms of
Okay.
sports enthusiasts being able to or not able to buy a higher tax, I mean, I don't think that's really relevant here. The entire process was to give relief to the middle class, the lower middle class. Unlike an income tax, which serves only a very few percentage of the population, a GST change affects much larger percentage of the population. This is the real budget. This is not income tax for all its optics affects very few, so that's not really there. It is this which actually makes a change in people's lives, and that's why I'm saying I hope that industry fulfills its part of the bargain and shows cuts in the prices of all sorts of goods where they have been given that substantial relief in terms of the tax rates, as well as making it simplified. The input tax credit system has been made much more simplified. So
I hear
that
you
also is one thing.
but
That's a
from where
cost.
as much as you have your apprehensions, I think the larger sentiment I get here is that the industry giants will pass on the benefits to people because they all need to survive and everyone's for the country's growth. The economy grows, these companies grow. It's only going to generate a lot of demand, especially during the festive season. I think it will have a big impact. So companies will comply, in my view, from what I see and understand and learn of the GST here. Adit, your take now on the international or global, perception that India has sent out with GST cuts like this right after Trump tariffs of 50%. We have been hit. Large-scale exports has been stalled to the United States. So internally now with GST reworking, do you believe that we are able to absorb this shock that US has pushed on us?
So, Nabila, I think we had a discussion right after the Independence Day announcement, and I think the trajectory was clear that it's a push to enhance the internal consumption in order to sort of offset these Trump tariff tantrums or whatever they are. So, in essence, the GST 2.0 or the reset will sort of create that sort of boost. Inherently, Trump's tariff tantrums has created that sort of a shock opportunity for India to sort of increase its internal economic activities. So all in all, it will impact the spending patterns in India. It will also impact manufacturing, which in turn will also create employability and employment opportunities. So as your consumption increases, as your spending increases, there is an automatic drive for industry to sort of also expand and put in new manufacturing units, and thereby your employment opportunities will also increase. Now the question is whether it will actually truly offset the kind of hit that the Trump tariffs are going to cause to the Indian GDP. Maybe in the short term not, but it's a really good step. It's a positive step. Immediate effects are going to be on those textile and leather industries, specifically people based off Tirupur, Agra, etc., who are producing goods and sending it to exporting it to the United States of America. So circa 66 billion out of the circa 90 billion of export goods which are currently being exported to United States are going to be impacted. I think the government needs to mull over what kind of tax holidays or sort of tax reliefs that they actually can build for them, can pass on to them from a benefit perspective. But all in all, I think we need to remember that with an increase of consumption patterns, the positive impact is going to be towards manufacturing, towards consumption in general. And also, foreign firms will want to sort of exploit this particular opportunity. So they would possibly look to possibly set up shops in India and sort of look at this mass market that we have. So far, a lot of foreign firms had they had inhibitions because of the complex structures that we had in place in India with regards to the GST setup. Even setting up a GST at this point is still very complicated. So a lot of companies did have those inhibitions. With the two slab system, it sort of it reduces it drastically. So hopefully that will encourage more sort of foreign manufacturers and companies to set up shop in India.
Yeah, and Dilip, would you reckon, does India's move to simplify GST make us look more investment friendly to global businesses now?
Yeah, absolutely. And Emilia, just on a lighter note, this GST has actually addressed the issue between man-made fibers and cotton. So a lot of the textiles that were not being made here because of the differential and not there, those textiles also would be made here because now it makes it competitive to make those textiles here. I think one of the challenges in the Indian ecosystem was that we are a large economy, but while purchasing power parity and all that is important, this has actually lowered the enabling you to lower the price of goods, which enables you to actually take advantage of the scale of the market. And therefore, I believe that people will find it more attractive to come in at these price points than earlier.
Yeah.
And of course, like Adit said, it'll give a boost to manufacturing, it'll give a boost to employment creation. But you should also take the caution which Shubhamoy actually talked about. And I think at least now what we are hearing, other than the one or two sectors where the prices have gone up, most people are saying they're going to pass on the benefits to the consumers. Some of them even said immediately, like you heard, this thing not waiting for the thing to be implemented from the 22nd of September.
Okay. All right. First day of Navratri, that's when it'll kick in. Very predictable of this government. Anything on an auspicious day, they make big announcements, and that's what they've done just ahead of Navratri. They've made this announcement. It will start off on the first day of Navratri. Let's just hope the festivities, the happiness really trickles down to the common man. I really appreciate all of you joining us. That's all we have time for here today. Thank you.